They changed this all around since I did it. All right, well, I'm going back to my old style. We will use some of this, but some of it we will not. Okay, let me familiarize you as much as I can with what the Discovery Seminar is about. Now, bear in mind, I haven't taught there for 20 years, give or take. I'm exaggerating. About 20 years. The first time I went, actually, I was bullied into teaching during the summer because I had jobs during the year, but during the summer I was free, that I should teach this. And I did what I always do. I go and research where all these things came from and how the whole thing works, etc. So I come out with a little bit better understanding than the average person. I maybe by way of introduction, I was tricked into taking an NCSY chapter when I was in Long Island. I knew nothing about NCSY. And the guy literally tricked me into taking it. And once I was there, I said, but I don't know what to do. He says, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through everything. And a week later, he resigned. And so I went down to regional office and I read everything about West Coast NCSY, not knowing that no one does that. So I was now the second most knowledgeable guy about West Coast NCSY besides the person who founded it and was running it, Lee Sampson. So I did the same thing with Discovery to figure out where everything came from and what it was all talking about. So the purpose of Discovery is to provide people with a forum for the evidence of Torah min hashamayim in a way that would hopefully make it as understandable, as palatable as possible. I see now that they have streamlined it, so they only have the third part, but Yasha Kayev, thank you so much.
Too many choices.
Oh my gosh, I'm old, tea, just like, is this like tea? Okay. I just drink tea.
Okay.
I once went with somebody into a Starbucks and he said, do you have coffee? I don't understand all this stuff. I'm just looking for coffee. Anyway.
Sugars, you're okay.
Givaldi.
All right. Good.
Anyway, so the way that it was presented when I was there, the idea is the following. You're in charge of the nuclear arsenal, and you get a message to send a nuclear bomb. Now you understand, this might lead to world destruction. So you got to make sure that it is correct. How do you know it's correct? So you need a way to identify the person. You have to make sure that the transmission came across accurately. You might want outside verification. And each one of these things, they used it as a class within this general fail-safe scenario to present to people the evidence for Torah Sinai. The final class, which is the one that I taught, because I didn't want to do any of the scientific ones and certain other things there, but the last one was called control. And this is the philosophy behind it. When it fits into the fail-safe, it's, does the person in charge who sent you the message, are they in control of the information or not? Do you know that they really know what they're doing or not? Yeah? Can you show them that they somehow are able to respond to your desire to see whether or not they are really running the show? That's the idea. So they bring 3 examples. They only bring the last one over here in our booklet. I guess they decided to streamline it. But you're lucky that you have me, and I will give you the full material. The first evidence that they wish to produce is from Parshas Bahar. Okay, so I'll give you the background. It goes like this. If Hashem didn't write the Torah, so who wrote the Torah? A group of people, some kind of committee. Yeah, sat down to write it. So, what?
Maybe just one person wrote it.
Or maybe just one person. I give committee because it just helps the thing sound better, but it could be one person. So you're that one person, or that committee, whichever one you prefer, and you're going to write this book that's going to give people a moral and ethical approach to life. And we're working with the assumption that you're essentially an intelligent person, right? No one's ever said, Rav Noach Weinberg said a very interesting thing, which I repeat many times, and that is, throughout history, we Jews have been called everything. We've been called usurers and capitalists and communists at the same time. We killed children for their blood. The one thing no one's ever said is that we're stupid. So there's no evidence that whoever wrote the Bible is stupid. You might argue with his morality, etc., but no one says that, assuming that it wasn't written by God. So we're writing this book to give people moral guidance. What would you put in? This is the group participation part of the program. You're writing the Torah. You're pretending it's written by God. You want to give people good advice. What would you put in?
10 Commandments.
Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. All those things are good, right? What else?
How the world was created?
What? You might give a story. Stories are always good. People like stories. Yeah. So I came up with a great idea. What about if we encourage everybody, since we didn't know about crop rotation, to let their land lay fallow once every 7 years? Is that a good idea?
No.
Why?
Because it's bad for the economy.
Right. What would be good about it? I see most of you people do not live in agricultural communities. I'm picking that up.
It's good for the land.
It's good for the land to rest. So today we do crop rotation, but it used to be that they figured out at some point that letting the land lay fallow allows it to renew its nutrients. If you keep planting it, eventually it gets overplanted, and then you end up with crummy crops. So from an agricultural point of view, saying to let the land lay fallow for a year is a good idea. What's the bad side to it? I would say even more than economics. Everyone will starve to death. Because when you're in an agricultural society, you grow food. When you don't grow any food, you don't eat. When you don't eat, you die. Okay? So, but you think it's a good idea to let the land lay fallow. So how can you provide the advantages of letting the land rest without having people starve to death?
Bumper crop.
Bumper crop.
Well, yeah, that's good if you can do that, but assuming that you're not God and you're just making this up.
Rotate.
So, say, we divide the country into 7 districts, and each district will let it lay fallow for 1 year, and then they'll share from the other ones, etc. That's one solution. Another solution?
Have people put away every year.
Every year, put away, right? That was Yosef's idea, right? Every year, put away 1/6 of your crop, and then in the 7th year, you'll have a full crop put aside. Brilliant. That would all be very good. You gave the one really bad answer, yeah? Which unfortunately is the one that the Torah gives, which is the following. Do not plant, do not harvest, do not bring in anything. Yeah? And then the Gemara says, and if you will ask, what will we eat? Which seems like a pretty good question. What will we eat? We have not planted or plowed or harvested. So what are you going to do instead? Yeah? Hein lo nizra v'lo ne'asaf es tvuaseinu. This is Perik in Vayikra Chaf Hey Pasuk Chaf. V'tzivisi es birchasi lechem b'shana hashishis v'asa es atful l'shalosh shanim. I will send my blessing to you in the 6th year, and it will produce enough crops for 3 years, and until you plant in the 8th year. And so you will eat on the 6th year and the 7th year and the 8th year until your new crop comes in. What's the downside with this idea? since I'm not God, and I cannot control the weather and the crops and the agriculture, especially at the end of 6 years when the land is the most exhausted, I tell you, miraculously it's going to produce a triple crop. How am I supposed to do that if I'm making this up? So anybody who actually follows my advice is going to starve to death. So why would I, if I'm an intelligent guy who's writing this, why would I write it? I was teaching this for many years, and a yeshiva guy who dressed up like he wasn't from snuck into the room and said to me, that doesn't prove that it actually happened. That just proves that the guy who wrote the book wrote it, but maybe nobody listened to him. Yeah? So that may or may not be true. This much is true, and that is that whoever wrote the book thinks he can actually control nature. Okay, you want to argue maybe we have no evidence that he did or he didn't. But he obviously wrote this down thinking he has that ability to control things. I can't prove to you whether he did or he didn't. I know that the Jews kept the Shemitah for a very long time. Did he have the ability or not? I don't know. But he obviously thought he did. Otherwise, if you're an intelligent guy, why write a law when we all sat down here in 2 minutes and came up with better solutions? Here's the second example it gives from this week's parsha. 3 times a year, you should, all of your males should go to Yerushalayim. This is Shmos Lamed Dalet, Perek Pasuk Chav Gimel. Shalosh panim shana yira'o kol zacharcha es pnei ha'adon Hashem Elokei Yisrael. All of your males, 3 times a year, should leave all of their lands and go to Yerushalayim. Now, what's the possible downside of that? Besides the obvious hotel capacity problem, but besides that.
You leave everything vulnerable.
And everyone will come and attack and kill. You'll come back, find your house burned, your wife and children killed, and all of your stuff stolen. That's a problem. What's the answer? Pasuk Chav Dalet. Ki arish goy mipanecha v'yachavdi ez gvulecha v'lo yachmod ishes aretzecha. You don't have to worry. Nobody will think to attack you during that time. Well, how in the world are you going to guarantee that? Unless you really think. I remember somebody one time, they said, the only advantage to this law is there won't be anybody left alive to see that there's no triple crop in the 6th year because they all got killed in the 1st year when they all abandoned their houses and the surrounding nations came and killed everybody. But why would you say something like that? When you understand the inherent problem with it. So those are the 2 examples that they bring. The third example is a little more dramatic, because it's not just that the person who's writing the book believes that they can control not only nature and the surrounding areas, but they also believe that for themselves, right, that whoever is writing this book is in charge, right? So that brings us to the next problem, yeah, and that's the following. We're coming to Purim, and that's why one of the reasons this is such an interesting insight. When you come to Purim, you see that the role of the Haman makes no sense whatsoever. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because you're going to destroy the Jewish people. Traditionally, that's not what people did to us. They might exile us to take all of our stuff, but then they would just send us someplace else. Every economy that has invited in the Jews did well. Poland, right, and they say, names of places are significant, right? British is the Commonwealth, right? The country is called England, but the British Empire is the Commonwealth of the nations. So Brit-ish is the people of the covenant, where they all join together in the Commonwealth. You can tell from different names the significance, and the Gemara darshans it all the time. So I don't think it was by chance that Russia was called Russia, right? I mean, I think it was pretty interesting why it was called that. But within names of places, you can get certain into it. When the Jews were living in Poland, they darshaned it as Polan. Here we will stay. And in fact, Jews were in Poland for 1,000 years. King Casimir invited the Jews to come to Poland. They were being kicked out of country after country, and he invited them to come. Why? Because he knows wherever the Jews come, they build up the economy, and they do great things for the economy. And so it was in his best interest. When the Jews were in Spain, Spain developed into this world power. They exiled the Jews. You could argue it was also the Spanish Armada being sunk at the beginning of the 1500s, but whatever it is, by the time we reach the 1600s, Spain's not a world power anymore. They lost their status. When the Jews were there, they were a world power. And history shows that where the Jews go, the economy builds. When the Ottoman Empire was developing, and they captured Eretz Yisrael, and they captured, and the Turks captured Eretz Yisrael in 1517, they invited the Jews to move in because they knew the Jews will help the economy. And in fact, the port of Salonika, which was one of the most important ports in all of the Ottoman Empire, was run by Jews. Ad Kedei Kach, it was closed on Shabbos. That was the power that they had to build the economy. So that when people bring in the Jews, they understand they bring certain power. Comes Haman and he says, wipe out all the Jews. So how in the world is this going to work out well? And in fact, you see that Haman says to Achashverosh, and I'll pay you the money that you'll lose from the taxes. Well, it doesn't make any sense. But as we're told, that's a Molech. A Molech is suicidal. That's how they're described. They throw themselves into an ambatir osech, as a boiling bathtub, knowing they're going to get burnt, but they'll cool it off for the next guy. And so there's anti-Semitism, and then there's a Molech. It's a different level, right? Tom Lehrer, a professor of mathematics in Harvard University, who, of course, is best known for writing funny songs. So he wrote a song called National Brotherhood Week when they first started it. And he has one about, the blacks and the whites. He has about the rich and the poor. And the last one is the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews, right? That's the one thing everybody around the world seems to be able to agree on, Everybody hates the Jews. So the fact that there's anti-Semitism, there's a quote that has been attributed to Winston Churchill. I can't find it. I've looked around for it, but I've heard it quoted by people secondhand many times. I can't find the quote. Winston Churchill supposedly said, anti-Semitism is hating Jews more than is necessary. What does that mean? It means what I believe it was Lord Asquith who once said, England has neither allies nor enemies, we have only national interests. When it's national interests, when it's in our interest to be nice to a country, we'll be nice to it. When it's in our interest to attack them, we'll attack them. England and America were mortal enemies, and at some point they became good friends because it served our purposes. England and France fought in the 100-Year War. They fought in the Napoleonic Wars. They fought, and when it was served their purpose to join together in World War I, they did. So that's how it goes. That's why you all know in Shoshanas Yaakov, Ara Haman, Baruch Mordechai, Arura Zeresh, Brucha Esther, V'gam Charvona Zachol Latov. Who's missing in the song? Run quickly through the story. Achashverosh. Achashverosh. Oh, you said Zeresh. I'm sorry. I thought you said Achashverosh. Achashverosh. No, we had Zeresh. Arura, Zeresh. Arura, right? Achashverosh, of whom the Gemara says hated the Jews more than Haman did. How come he's not mentioned in the song? Because Achashverosh was a classic anti-Semite. When it served his purpose to promote Mordechai and be nice to the Jews, he did it. The Spanish Inquisition, when they exiled all the Jews, they were so happy to have the Barbanel as their finance minister. When it serves their purposes, they do that. That's the difference between a Molek and a standard anti-Semite. Standard anti-Semite hates us. Everybody hates us. It's just when it's in their best interest to be nice to us, they're nice to us. That's when you find somebody who actually likes us. You know, that's absolutely amazing. I'm thinking here of Douglas Murray, you know. If you've seen him anyplace, my goodness. Halavai, I can find a Jew who talks about the Jews as well as he does, and as eloquently, you know, and with that sarcastic English accent, it's just absolutely perfect. The last one who was as good as that was Abba Eben, you know what I mean? But, you know, he just explains everything so beautifully, but he's the exception. There are people who may be pro-Israel when it serves their purposes, and when it doesn't, they turn on us. So that's an average anti-Semite. A Malik doesn't care. I have everything. I have wealth. I have power. And it's not worth it to me when I see the Jews. I will throw myself into that boiling bathtub and be destroyed. From the time of Achashverosh, a quick perusal of history, you'll find it difficult to find anyone who hated us to the point of destruction like Haman did. I'll be very clear. Haman did not give us the option to convert to Zoroastrianism, which is what they worshipped in Persia. He didn't give us the opportunity to pay our way out. He didn't give us any opportunity. Only death. Everybody else, you could pay them off. You know, you could find some way to do it. The Spanish Inquisition gave us time to leave. Okay, we had to leave our money behind, but they gave us time, gave us opportunity, you know, or you could convert. So you had options. It's not, we are going to completely destroy the Jews.
Nazis?
Until we come to World War II. The only other group that has become suicidal in its desire to destroy the Jews is the Nazis. When I say suicidal, there is a historian by the name of Lucy Davidowitz who wrote a book called The War Against the Jews, where she says it's not, when you read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, he presents Hitler's war aims as expanding Germany, this and next, etc., and along the way killing the Jews. She says no. If you study the history of what Germany did, it's clear that destroying the Jews was their prime objective. And in fact, I don't know if they have it over here. Oh, here it is. If you go on, well, over here is page 76. Listen to this quote of Hitler on the bottom to the right. Hitler stated, "It is true we are barbarians. It is an honorable title. I free humanity from the shackles of the soul, from the degrading suffering caused by the false vision called conscience and morality. I'm freeing them from that. We're going to be barbarians. The Jews have inflicted two wounds on mankind: circumcision on its body and conscience on its soul. These are Jewish inventions. The war for world domination will be fought entirely between us, the Germans, and the Jews. All else is facade and illusion." Hitler says, don't pay attention to Russia. Don't pay attention to France or England or America. The whole war is being fought between the Germans and the Jews. All else is facade and illusion. What a powerful thing. So this certainly supports what Lucy Davidowitz says. That's why the Jews were so unprepared for this, because it had been 2,500 years since anybody said, we're going to kill you and there's no way out. So the Jews fell back on their usual methods that allowed them to survive. They tried to pay people off. They tried to, work within the system. They tried everything they could, but nothing helped, because they were encountering an Amalek-like character who they had never seen before, not in thousands of years, which was an absolutely astounding thing for them to have to be able to experience. And that's why she says. So one of the reasons they thought they weren't going to be killed, and in fact, some of the people in the Allied nations also didn't believe the Jews were going to be exterminated, is because they were working to produce essential war materials. You don't kill those people. You need them. They were making uniforms. They were making armaments. They were doing everything that they needed. Right? So why would you then go and kill essential workforce? Not only that, when they desperately needed the trains to be able to transport the troops to be able to meet the oncoming American invasion, why would you be wasting trains taking Jews off to concentration camps, to death camps? It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of resources. Barbara Tuchman, in The Guns of August, when she describes the brilliance of the German army, it was their use of rail. How they were able to take their troops to the Eastern Front and win this tremendous battle at Tannenberg, and then, bring them all back again to fight the battle on the Marne. They went back and forth with their troops. They knew how to do this. And here, the last major offensive in World War II was the Battle of the Bulge. And one of the reasons the Germans did not succeed in expanding this bulge in the Allied lines was because they ran out of gas. So you need these materials to fight the battle, and instead you use it to exterminate the Jews. Why would you do that? It's suicidal from the point of view of the Third Reich. It doesn't make any sense. So until you reach the Nazis, you've never encountered this before. So the power of Amalek to be able to destroy is unbelievably powerful. Amalek's been spread out, right? There's not one place. But there is a certain concentration of them, as it says over here. I'm also on page 76. The Gemara Megillah 6b. Rabbi Yitzchak said, what is meant by the pasuk? Oh God, don't grant the desires of the evil man, and don't let him draw out his bit, which is what you put in the mouth of the horse, lest he raise himself above others. What does this mean? Yaakov is davening to Hashem. Don't grant the desires of the evil man, Esav, and don't let him draw out his bit. This refers to Gemamia of Edom, for should they go forth and destroy, they would destroy the entire world. Little note on the bottom over there. Gemamia is the name of a monarchy from the kingdom of Edom. That's from Rashi. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden, they didn't bring it over here, but Rabbi Yaakov Emden says, that's what we call today Germania. But apparently in ancient times it was referred to as Gemamia. So Yaakov is davening and says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever you do, keep Germany under control. There was a comedian called Norm Macdonald. He passed away. Very funny guy. But he said once, he says, I don't know, everybody's nervous about North Korea. I'm not nervous about North Korea. I'm only nervous about Germany. He says, I don't know how many of you are history buffs. He says, but you know, in 1914, Germany decided to declare war on everybody, on the whole world. And it was pretty close. He says, yeah? So what do? So we stop and we say, well, now everything's fine. And 40 years later, they declare war again on the whole world, and they almost win. When you think about it, it's absolutely amazing, the force that Germany has. So he says, keep them under control. How do you keep them under control? Rabbi Chama bar Chanina said, there are 300 princes in Germania and 365 chieftains in Rome, meaning Italy. And every day one goes out to meet the other, and one of them is killed, and they all have the trouble of appointing a king again. What does that mean? I'm reading now from the Hebrew Encyclopedia, Germany, not basing itself on the Gemara and Megillah. The political disintegration of Germany had far-reaching economic effects. 300 princedoms and free cities guarded their economic autonomy fiercely. They put tariffs on business transaction. Germany subsequently was effectively excluded from the international market, etc. Rise and fall of the Third Reich. By the end of the Middle Ages, which had seen Britain and France emerge as unified nations, Germany remained a crazy patchwork of 300 individual states. Part of this, of course, was because of the 30-Year War. There was a tremendous war in Europe between the Protestants and the Catholics. So certain countries remained Catholic, like France and Spain. Some of them became Protestant, like Holland, Belgium, and Germany got into a tremendous civil war going back and forth. And by the end of the 30-Year War, the agreement was every little princedom will decide for themselves. So Germany wasn't united. They were divided between Bavaria, Prussia, Holstein, all these different places were each their own country, so to speak. And the number they give is the same number the Gemara gave almost 2,000 years before, 300 city-states. And going into the 1800s, there was only one other country in Europe that was not unified. France was unified, Spain was unified. Spain became unified under Ferdinand and Isabella. All the different kingdoms, Aragon and Castile and everything, they all united. And everybody was more or less together except for Germany and Italy. Italy also remained as a little patchwork of states. There was Genoa, and there was Venice, and there was Naples. Each one of these was the kingdom of Naples, and there were the papal states, and everything was divvied up. They were totally not unified. So, what ends up happening? Hitler comes to power. Now, we got to move back. When did this end? It ended under Bismarck. In 1870, there was the Franco-Prussian War, which in many levels was the introduction to World War I. Prussia attacked France, and they won. They took away Alsace-Lorraine, and France was humiliated. They captured Paris. It was a tremendous boucher for France, and they were very upset. But with this force, Prussia forced all of the states to unite. This was Bismarck. and they were able to form Germany. Germany was, because of this, became a superpower. Ghirardelli in Italy managed to unite Italy, right? Okay. So we go into World War I. World War I was one of the most unbelievable events in world history that you cannot make any sense out of. They went into this war knowing that, as Martin Gilbert says on his book on World War I, knowing with the technology that they had at the time, they couldn't possibly win. There was no way to win. And so the Germans had the Schefflin plan, where they were going to bypass, go through Belgium and sweep through and capture France. But by that point, they realized the arc was too big. They weren't going to make it. They already knew the plan wasn't going to work, but that was the only one they had. And France was fighting them back, and finally they stopped them on the Marne River. And all of France, all the way to Switzerland, they made a giant ditch, barbed wire, and from each side, and they just kept shooting at each other. Every now and then they would try to attack, and they would machine gun them, and they would go back. Until they got planes and tanks, there was no way to win this. And it was just an unwinnable war. It just destroyed an entire generation. And eventually America came in. Eventually America came in, and that was the tip of the balance. Now, how did this start? The Crown Prince of Austria-Hungary was killed by a Serbian. And if Austria-Hungary immediately attacked Serbia, that would be fine, but they didn't. They had a pact with Germany and Italy, and they first asked their partners if it was okay if we attacked Serbia. So in the meantime, Serbia goes to Russia, and they say, hey, we're all Slavs. You got to defend us. And so Russia says to Austria-Hungary, if you attack Serbia, we'll attack you. And so Germany says to Russia, oh yeah? Well, we've got a treaty with Austria-Hungary, and if you attack them, we'll attack you. Now, Russia had a treaty with France. So Germany says to France, are you going to help Russia or not? And France said, we haven't decided. So Germany said, in that case, we're going to attack you. And in order to attack them, they had to go through Belgium, and England had guaranteed to protect Belgium, and so they came in, and everything is falling apart. Italy looks around and says, I could probably do better with Russia and England and France than I can with Germany, and besides, there are parts of Austria-Hungary I want to take for myself. So they said, we're breaking our treaty with Austria-Hungary and Germany, and we're switching sides. And so Austria-Hungary is busy fighting Italy, and they're fighting Russia, and they're fighting on a million fronts. Germany has to fight Russia, has to fight France, going back and forth, and they managed. They defeated Russia. That led to the fall of the Tsar, and then they were putting their forces into France, and they would have won if America didn't come in. Hitler was a colonel in World War I, and so he said, he didn't know this Gemara, but he knew, two things I got to do. I got to not fight with Italy, and I got to make sure to keep America out of the war. America did every warlike thing that they could, besides actually attacking Germany. They had the Lend-Lease program. Do you understand what the Lend-Lease program means? America is neutral. And I'm at war with Russia and England. And America keeps sending armaments to Russia and England saying, we're selling it to them. Says, but they're not paying you for it. Yeah, they'll pay it when they get the money. That's an act of war. You're supplying my enemy. He didn't do anything. From 1939 to 1941, he did nothing because he was terrified of bringing America into the war. And he backed up Italy. No matter what stupid thing Mussolini did, he went. Operation Barbarossa, which was his attack into Russia, was supposed to start in May, but Mussolini decided to attack Greece and he was losing. So Germany stopped to go and help them, and that threw off their timetable by a month. And then, as they were besieging Moscow, they suddenly got hit with the winter because they were a month behind schedule because he was helping Mussolini. But he did not want to fight Italy because he somehow knew the only thing that stops Germany from destroying the entire world is if we spend our time fighting with Italy. And that's why when they finally invaded in Italy and they deposed Mussolini, he moved in and took over Italy right away to fight the Americans, and they never fought themselves out of Italy. You know, they got stuck over there. Even though they had already captured Sicily and they started moving up, and he made a defense and stopped them. He somehow knew this. So the evidence that this Gurmamia that the Gemara talks about is a Molech. There's one other thing that they used to bring down, and I don't see it here anymore, but it is an absolutely amazing idea. And that is that it says that when Kaiser Wilhelm II, this is in the 1880s, came to visit Israel. So people came out to make the bracha on seeing a king. He was still a king, Kaiser. Kaiser was the German term which is similar to Tsar. They both come from Caesar. Yeah? And when Kaiser Wilhelm came, so it says Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld would not go out to see him. He says because we have a tradition that Germany is a Molech. And so he wasn't going to go. Very strange thing. And that's the following. Says the pasuk. I'm looking at page 77 in this booklet. Look at the pasuk that's underlined. Im al melech toiv. Well, you know what? Let's read this. Let me start at the beginning. The top of the page. Bnei Haman ben Hamdasa tzra haYehudim hargu. They killed the 10 sons of Haman. Right? Now Achashverosh says to her, says to Esther Malka, Hargo Yehudim v'Avad Chamesh Miyosi. She killed 500 people. V'yasaseres b'nei Haman. Yeah, and you killed the 10 sons of Haman. What else do you want? V'tome Esther im al melech toiv. Yinosen gam mochar la Yehudim asher b'Shushan la'asos kedas hayom v'yasaseres b'nei Haman yidlu al eitz. If it pleases the king, we would like to fight Amalek also tomorrow and hang the 10 sons of Haman. They were already hanged. What do you mean hang them? They were already hanged. Right? That's why this little section from the Megillah, as you see, is written this way so it looks like a gallows, because they were hanged in a row, up and down, vertically. So, what does that mean? So there are those who say that machar means tomorrow. It can also mean the future. Yeah? So it's as if Esther is saying to the Melech. Now what do we remember about Megillah's Esther 101? Whenever it says Melech, it could also mean Hashem. So you can read this as Im el Melech Toiv. Hashem should allow the next time that we fight Amalek that we should hang the 10 sons of Haman. We turn the page. Turn to one more page, 79. The article from Newsweek, October 28, 1946. At the conclusion of the Nuremberg trials, 10 Nazis were hanged. I'm reading you the article. Frantic prison officials determined that no other victim should escape them, at once shackled the 10 surviving convicts in their cells. Then in the 90 minutes in the early hours of October 16th, full disclosure, that's Hoshana Rabbah, that year, which is the Yom HaDin for the Umas HaOlam. They followed each other to the gallows. Ribbentrop, pale and disheveled, got Goring's number one spot. Because what happened to Goring? Goring committed suicide. You know, by the way, Haman had 11 children. Who was his 11th child? The daughter. What happened to her? She committed suicide. So there were 11 Nazis who were sentenced to death, but Goring committed suicide. I don't know if it's important or not, but apparently Goring was a cross-dresser. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that one in. Ribbentrop got the first spot of Goring. Blinded by the glare, he stood inside the door facing the three black wooden scaffolds, etc. He gave his name, he stood up, etc. God protect Germany. May I say something else? My last wish is that Germany realize its unity. Fine. And one by one, they were hanged, and then Keitel, etc. Last paragraph. Only Julius Streicher went without dignity. He had to be pushed across the floor, wild-eyed and screaming, Heil Hitler. Mounting the steps, he cried out, and now I go to God. He stared at the witnesses facing the gallows and shouted, Purim Fest, 1946. The Nazis knew about the holidays. Somehow, as the last of the 10 Nazis, are being taken out to be hanged, he says, Purim Fest. This is Purim again. Now, look at the little calendar to the left. Yeah. As you can see, this was on October 16th. The date is circled. It's Hoshana Rabbah. And the year was, 1946 was 5007, because it was after Rosh Hashanah. Otherwise it would be 5006. 5007, which is what? Tafshin Zayin. And you know that Tafshin Zayin, how much does that equal? 707. We leave off the millennia, because otherwise you'd have to do tough, right? But how many Tafshin Zayins have there been in history?
6.
Right? 707, 1707, 2707, 3707, 4707, 5707 was the sixth one. I have a Megillah that my father gave me. He said it was his grandfather's. It's at least 100 years old, maybe 150 years old. Turn back to page 77 and look in where it lists the 10 sons of Haman. Parshan Data. You see a small tuf? Keep going down. Paramashta. You see a small shin? Vayizafsa. See a small zayin? Tafshin Zayin. And then in case you don't know which Tafshin Zayin, the Vav in the last word is big. On the 6th Tafshin Zayin, the 10 sons of Haman will, according to Esther's Tefillah, be hanged again. As the old expression goes, coincidence? I think not. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows us that He is in control of history. Events take place, whether we realize it or not. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the ability to tell us 2,500 years ago that Amalek is going to come a third time. Now, when did Amalek attack the first time? When we left Eretz Yisrael and we were on our way to Har Sinai, and from Har Sinai to Eretz Yisrael, and as we were coming out, he attacks us the first time. When we come into Eretz Yisrael and set up our first Melech, that's our second war with Amalek. When do they come the third time? When we're in Gullus Bavel, which turns into Gullus Paras, and we're getting ready to come back to Eretz Yisrael. They had gotten permission to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, and Haman got Achashverosh to stop. And that's why throughout he says, Ad Chatzi Malchus, and the Chazal say, but not the Beis HaMikdash. That's when Amalek attacks, when he sees we're ready to go back. The return to Israel program started at the end of the 1800s. And by the beginning of the 1900s, it was growing. And suddenly, a new Amalek appears on the scene with only one desire: lahareg u'le'abed es kol ha'yehudim minar v'ad zaken. Total destruction. That's all they want. And once again, we defeat them. And then, shortly after that, the Jews are able to come back to Eretz Yisrael and establish their own country and begin to change the course of modern history. We are almost at the point where the majority of Jews are living in Eretz Yisrael. You understand the halachic significance of that. Because the only reason Shemitah is the Rabbanan today is because most of the Jews are not living in Eretz Yisrael. Once the majority of Jews are living in Eretz Yisrael, that's it. All bets are off. Yeah, we've changed the course of history. When was the last time the majority of Jews lived in Eretz Yisrael? Bayis Rishon. In Bayis Sheni, most of them didn't come back. So we're going back over 2,800 years. We're on the cusp right now. So when you look at the ability, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, I'll make sure you have food, don't worry about planting and harvesting, I'll take care of it. And don't worry about being Eila Regel, I'll make sure no one attacks you. And you don't have to worry when you see that the Mullah comes the next time, because Esther already saw this and wrote it into the Megillah the year. Now you can give other explanations for this, but you got to admit, on a simple level, it's freaky. When I used to present this in Discovery, I would always say the same thing. I said, we spent 2.5 days here. We didn't teach you any Torah. I remember during the question and answer, one of the classes they give us codes, and codes that are hidden in the Torah. And you can see from the question and answer, people think what we sit in a base medrash is with a computer working out the codes, And I would tell people, no, we really don't spend time doing that. And they said, yeah, but maybe there's a message there for us. I said, there is. Keep the Shabbos, honor your parents, keep the holidays. You don't have to find it spelled out every 49 letters. It's written there. And I said, for 2.5 days, we did not teach you Torah. All we did was teach you that the Torah is worth learning. Now learn it. And that's the most important thing that you can do. And I used to end with this observation, and I used to end my intermarriage classes with the same observation. I said, if you're Jewish today, you probably had 2 Jewish parents, 4 Jewish grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. 16, 32, 64, 128. You're not going back that far in time till you had hundreds of ancestors. 256, 512, 1,024. 3 more generations, you're dealing with thousands. Thousands of people who decided to be Jewish, or you would not be here today Jewish. You'd be here maybe as somebody else. Plenty of Jews have vanished throughout history. But you wouldn't be here as a Jew. I said, when you think about this, you know what it was to be a Jew through the past 2,000 years of history? Economic hardship, exile, persecution, death, destruction, and thousands of people decided it was worth it to pass this thing called the Torah down to you. Said, when grandparents die and you want to sell the house, there's 2 ways to do it. Yeah, you call in the junk removers, and they take everything out. They charge you a fee. They throw everything away. I was amazed when my mother passed away, and we had to clean out the house, how much stuff there was. And I live in Eretz Yisrael. I can't take that much with me, take a few memorabilia, but it's enormous amount of stuff there. And, you know, you just take the boxes and throw everything out. Or you could go through the boxes. And we read stories every single day. People go through these boxes in old people's houses, and they get collectibles, old baseball cards, first edition Superman comic books, jewelry, stocks and bonds. You read about it every single day. Every day people are finding a fortune, and every day people are throwing away a fortune. The difference is whether they take the time to go through the box. All of these people in history sacrificed to pass you down this box called the Torah. Maybe they were all stupid, or maybe there's a treasure in there, and before you throw it away, you should open it up and look inside. Thank you very much. I haven't given this class in about 20 years. I hope I did okay.